Docky Who.
Docky Who.
Docky Who is back. Episode 4, Lucky Day. Doctor-Lite episode. Very little Shooty Gatwa. Very little Verada. It's headed up by Ruby Sunday, who is the last season's companion. She's back. And then we had... I'm blanking on his name. The character's name is Conrad, but the only other thing I've seen him in is he was the romantic lead in The Little Mermaid, the live-action remake.
Oh, wow.
Which I had to endure. Okay. So that's the only thing I've seen of him. But, just initial thoughts, I think, overview. Yep. I personally think this was probably the weakest episode of Season 2 so far for me. I really didn't vibe with it. I want to go into it, but let's get your take first. Let's get your take first, because I feel like I want to kind of not go in, but there's a few things that bothered me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't hate it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I still think this season is way stronger than the previous season.
I agree with that,
and I think that this episode was better than the last episode. Last season episode at this point.
The 73 yards.
Yes.
Oh, see, I disagree there.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
I think if we're gonna go Doctor-Lite versus Doctor-Lite.
Oh wait, actually, hold on. Maybe I'm thinking of the wrong one. Is 73 yards the one in the cottage and that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was pretty better actually. For some reason I thought it was the TikTok one.
Oh, yeah, Dot and Bubble.
Dot and Bubble, yeah.
I think as a Ruby Sunday led Doctor-Lite episode that ends up going to the country at one point, this is definitely the inferior of the two. Okay. I think 73 yards is definitely better.
Okay.
I think the problem I had with this is I don't know how much of this I can really criticise in terms of maybe it's a production thing that they can't get around, but I think it's a real shame that out of 2 Shooty Gatwa seasons, with only 8 episodes per season, we have now had 3 Doctor-Lites.
That's really weird. Yeah,
we had 2 last year.
Yeah,
and I think that was to do with him doing sex education.
Yeah. And
then I did think this year, I think I even said in an earlier podcast, it's great we don't have to do any Doctor-Lites this year.
Yeah.
No, this year, Doctor-Lite, and I'm like, I just feel like, we've only got 8 episodes to play with, and then that's immediately truncated to 7. Especially when you've got a new companion in the mix. It's like we've only got 7 episodes to really dig into the relationship with Doctor and companion. So I think that's a shame. Doesn't necessarily mean the episode's going to be bad, but I just feel like in terms of the structure of the season, did we really need another Doctor-Lite episode? Could we not have gotten Shooty in for the full 8 episodes? Especially after last year, we already had 2 Doctor-Lites. Could those 2 Doctor-Lites have not been enough for both seasons?
Yeah.
That's kind of one apiece. So that's a shame because, we're only one more Doctor-Lite off of half a season's worth.
I like calling it Doctor-Lite.
Doctor-Lite.
Dr. Zero.
It was Diet Doctor.
Diet Doctor.
Yeah, it was coined with Blink. That was the first one.
Oh, all right. Okay,
But back then it was done because of the way the filming blocks worked. It made it much easier to have at least one episode with David Tennant being minimal.
Oh, okay.
But back then it was 14 episodes a year.
It's different, yeah.
13 episodes in a Christmas special.
8 episodes, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit... I know TV's obviously slower to make these days, but still, it's kind of like, do we really need another Doctor-Lite?
Yeah.
And also, the other thing with Doctor-Lite is I feel like it's got to be a banger.
Yeah.
And I felt like this was a very run-of-the-mill episode of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
I liked this thing. I liked some of the ideas it played. I like the idea of the villain being an ordinary guy who met the Doctor when he was young, and he's kind of a bit of a grifter, kind of a bit of a conspiracy theorist. I thought it was interesting, like, the backstory of he's actually rich, tax dodging, complaining about people on benefits, and then he's tax dodging. He's got like a Cayman Islands account, isn't he? He's got his mum living in the south of France. All that stuff I think is interesting, but I think the main problem I have with it is we ditched Belinda this week.
Yeah.
When she's easily been the superior companion with more depth.
Yeah.
To go back to Ruby Sunday, and I think it kind of reminded me of how Ruby Sunday, I think, is quite a thin character.
Yeah.
I don't think she's been given a lot to do. And I think going back and exploring her through the lens of her meeting a boyfriend, only for it 20 minutes in for it to be, twist, the boyfriend never loved her and he's actually an arsehole and he's actually the villain.
Yeah.
I feel like this is the kind of twist that you want midway into a Doctor Who season where the boyfriend's been on Earth. Yeah, and like every time Ruby and the Doctor go on an adventure, they go home to London or to Earth, and the boyfriend's there. They catch up with him. Kind of what like the Earth characters were in the old series, right?
I agree.
Get to know him.
Yep.
Like Mickey or Rory. Like we got to know the boyfriends, and they became proper characters. Do you know what I mean?
100%. You know, because I actually do think it's a shame, because, just to interject, I feel like I actually was buying their romance. I don't know about you. I actually enjoyed the first half rather than the latter half. And I actually thought, I mean, look, I'm a filthy casual when it comes to this as well, this Star Wars, Doctor Who stuff. So, like, I'm just watching it as is. And I actually kind of enjoyed that first half, particularly because I do think you're right. I do think Ruby is thin, but I do like in this episode that it was playing on this whole idea of, like, well, what's kind of the repercussions of being a companion? Like, to me, I was like, that's kind of interesting. Like, she's kind of paranoid. She kind of can't. She's constantly waiting for the Doctor to turn up. She's not really living her life. And I found that really interesting. I actually quite like that. I feel like it gave Ruby another element that was kind of missing before. Particularly like this whole idea of her like not being able to move on with a relationship. And I don't know if I'm an idiot, but I did not see the twist coming. Whether that means it's a good thing or not, whatever, I don't know. But I was actually genuinely starting to kind of buy that there was these two people that had kind of experienced the Doctor in their own sort of way. One through this kid seeing him as a kid, and one of Ruby who's actually gone on these adventures. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way for them to sort of connect. But yeah, I do agree with you that the turn, maybe we set it up here and then Ruby comes in and they both come in on the journey, and then maybe like end of the episode or towards the end of the season we have the reveal. I think that would have made this feel a lot stronger. But the fact that it all happened in one episode, it kind of, I didn't really buy the turn. I think that's the problem, is like he goes from being this guy, but there was no seeds planted for him to just turn into this maniacal just twat, really.
Well, he is a podcast douche. And we all know those podcast douches. Oh my lord. I found it a bit trite. I didn't really enjoy the relationship. I didn't really buy it. So maybe that's the point of difference where you enjoyed it more than I did. Because I wasn't really enjoying that first half for that reason. I do like that it's kind of like dealing with her PTSD of having been a companion. I think all that stuff's interesting. Yeah. But I just think it's weird in terms of where we're putting the characters on the board. Like, we had a whole season of Ruby, and then maybe the second season could have been the season to really flesh her out. Now that we, kind of like what happened with Clara, where like we got rid of like the mystery of who she is, which is a tired question. Now we're going to get to see her as a person. Yeah. Maybe if that had been the first 4 episodes, season 2 of Ruby Sunday and the Doctor, where he'd been sprinkled in, and then this twist had happened, maybe that would have been a fantastic mid-season twist.
I agree.
But instead it's been the Belinda and Doctor show, and now it almost felt like this episode, it felt like we went back to season 1 for a night. Do you know what I mean? It felt like we just like...
Yeah.
Went back for a little bit. One thing I do like is the bootstrap paradox of... In episode 1 this season, we were all kind of like, why is he going after Belinda, the Doctor? And then we find out here that the Doctor we meet at the end of this episode is before episode 1, isn't it? Because he says... Conrad says to him, have you met Belinda yet?
Yeah.
So that's what's given him the kind of impetus to go find
Oh yeah.
Which that was really
that was interesting. Yeah,
that was nice. But I think he was also a thin character.
He was, yeah.
The whole idea of like the aliens aren't real. I know they're not real. And I'm going to prove it to you. It's like I feel like there's been characters like this in like with Clive in the very first episode in Rose, and like Love and Monsters, of this whole kind of like normal people sort of wondering if the aliens are real and all this kind of stuff. And I feel like it's been done better. And I don't know. I just think at this point in the Whoniverse, I think it's really strange for him to be so like, what do UNIT do? They don't do anything. It's like we've seen some mass scale events happen just in terms of RTD2. Like the first David Tennant episode of the 14th Doctor, like all of London's like breaking apart. Yeah. So it's like, and like Avengers Tower is all up in lights like Avengers Tower, and then all this stuff's going on. Like the toy maker with the giggle, like that was widespread. I just feel like we've gone past the point of having someone be like, I don't believe any of it's real.
100% agree. Yeah, and that's the biggest problem with this episode.
Yeah, as
a whole, completely. This is like that turn just didn't buy it whatsoever. Like it just felt so. I do think that's kind of been a common theme we've had with this, is that sometimes there's been a lot of twists for the sake of twists.
And I guess trying to like play on the whole theme of like conspiracy nuts.
Yes, of course.
And kind of like right wing populism, this kind of idea, but like. When you do a parallel, the parallel in of itself in that universe needs to make sense, right? And I just feel like, it kind of brings up some interesting themes, but within the context of this universe, I don't buy this person would exist.
Yes.
And I think Think Tank is not very well executed. Also, what annoys me is the whole twist, where like the goblin things turn out to be like two of his goons in costumes.
Yeah.
Where did they get the costumes from that look exactly the same as the actual creature?
Yep.
And if they could find like detailed images to make the costumes look one-to-one, would that not lend to the idea that they believe that they exist?
Yep, no, it made no sense.
Like, how do they look so...
100%.
It doesn't make sense.
The other thing that really bothered me was that if he's already got this other really successful podcast, surely him having that podcast and that podcast isn't... the internet exists. Isn't there going to be a point where she'll realise that...
Yeah.
He's doing both.
Was he already that podcast guy, the Doctor Who podcast guy?
Yeah.
And then
he invented it.
He came out and then was like, I'm actually this guy.
Yeah.
Or did he already have that podcast and she didn't know about it? Yeah, it doesn't make sense. Also, I just hate the whole like. It's what you were saying last week of like, how'd you do, fellow kids? Like, he's a podcaster. Yeah. He's filming a thing that doesn't really feel like a podcast. Like, I loved the cut to the camera and it said the corner podcast cam. Just in case we didn't get it. Just in case. We should put it down in the bottom of this.
The whole episode.
The whole thing, podcast cam. And I don't know. It didn't feel like a truism. It didn't feel like a real character.
No,
And also I just felt like he was insanely powerful. Like how the whole second half of the episode moves so quickly to like the whole country's up in arms talking about it. Everyone's throwing eggs at Ruby's limo.
He easily gets into unit. Like, I'm sorry, this is a military.
Easily.
Like these are stopping people from alien invasions. Yet they can't stop this one guy who's just a podcaster, brother.
And it's it's like it's just because he knows a guy on the inside. Granted, okay, maybe he'd get him through security, But like he meets him in the stairwell, and then he's like, judo chop, and then he gets the rifle, and then he's up in the fucking like top brass.
He basically does judo chop. Yeah,
it's so ridiculous.
And
I just it's weird.
Yeah,
it's also like what's kind of the takeaway at the end where he's like he kind of meets the creature, and then when he meets the Doctor, he's like, I reject your reality, Doctor. Yeah. It's like, well, do you believe it now? Yeah. I don't like what. I guess we haven't seen the last of his character because he meets Mrs. Flood. But...
Yeah, and it's implies going to be a bigger arcing villain, I feel like. Do you think it'd have been better maybe if this episode kind of played out the way it was playing out? Mm-hmm. That these monsters were actually coming after him. And he still did that whole thing of like, oh, I didn't take that serum or whatever it is. And it's maybe played on... Maybe they have a bit of a moment where it's like, oh, I didn't take it because... I'm not gonna lie to you, I don't really believe this stuff. And then, they still kind of stay together, but they have a bit of an argument, where by the end. And then later on, we have this reveal, like we said. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I almost feel like it would have been stronger without a twist.
Yeah, if it just played as it was, because I was kind of enjoying it going that way. And I feel like the more we're talking about this second half, the more I'm like, it was too fast paced. It was
insanely fast paced.
Yeah, it was like, it just didn't have any tension because of that. And I just,
I feel like it was 10 minutes later.
I think trite is the perfect way to describe it. Yeah.
I feel like 10 minutes later he was up in the tower from when like he was their boyfriend. Like it just moved so fast. Yeah. And also, I think you're right. It's like maybe if the rest of the episode had been, Ruby, you say you have all this PTSD and like I'm not like you'd have to change the front end to make this work. But I do like the idea that like he is a normal guy and he's kind of like, I do think maybe I really like you. Maybe I'm a bit shallow and I kind of like fancy you, and when you say all this stuff, I kind of just like yes it. Yeah. I'm a bit of a yes man, and like I don't really believe that you did all this stuff. And maybe he's not the guy that she thought he was, or I do like that whole thing of like I wanted to prove I was just as brave as the Doctor. Yeah, you could make a whole episode out of that.
Yeah, but that's what I thought. I was kind of looking for. I was kind of enjoying that. But then I also this is kind of the other problem with the episode is kind of like if you've seen the Doctor and stuff. And you've seen this TARDIS that's teleported away as it gives you a 50p. Like, I don't know. I feel like if I was a kid, I'd think these people are probably pretty good at stopping these intergalactic things. Like, these aliens do exist or whatever it is. I don't know.
I guess the whole point is that all this stuff, even though it's right in front of you, you could still not believe it and think it's a conspiracy. It's like the root of conspiracy theorists,
right.
isn't it?
Yeah, sorry. I guess that is the point. But I just don't. I don't know.
But I just think it's shaky in the Doctor Who universe. There's been so many alien invasions, so many.
Yeah, I agree.
So many moments where it's like I feel like the world has moved into the point where people believe this stuff exists.
Yeah,
and it's just strange to still be like, Yeah, this guy thinks they all faked it with CGI. I don't know. You know what? I'd forgive all of that stuff if I felt like the character work that came out of it worked. I think that's the problem. Is like I don't feel like Conrad was a strong enough character, or that like it really challenged Ruby in an interesting enough way for me to forgive all that stuff.
Especially when like the monster was there, he's shitting his pants, and then she tases the thing, and then he gets up and he's like, special effects have gone great, and then it bites his arm, and then we cut to the doctor talking to him, but it's like, why is he still so? I just don't understand why he's still smug about it all. It's like, surely by that point he'd be like, oh, actually, my whole world has been shifted. It was all real this whole time. Yeah. Oh no, I'm going to double down on it. And also, like, I'm kind of happy now in prison. Like, he didn't seem, I don't know, it was just weird.
I thought he was a bit of a cringy character. I didn't really enjoy him. He's like that Flat Earth at the end of that documentary we watched, where he does the experiment to prove the Earth's flat, and then it proves the Earth's round. He's like, oh,
yeah.
Hang on a minute. That's what it should have been like. A moment of like, oh.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't awful. I do agree this season's been better than the last season.
Yeah.
But I think the last 3 episodes, there was something in all of them that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the premises of all of them. And I think the biggest difference is I really enjoy Belinda. Same. And as soon as we cut her out of the picture, I'm like, oh,
we noticed it.
Could we not just had another Belinda Doctor episode? Also, I love the whole idea of like she's trying to get back to Earth.
Yeah,
and that was a great through line. So to cut that out for a week, and then we're gonna go back to it next week.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Weird.
But also maybe this episode will be better in retrospect when Conrad teams up with Mrs. Flood for the ultimate showdown.
I was gonna say, are they team? Is she forming an Avengers, like an anti-Avengers? Like,
I wonder, because the final episode's called The Reality War.
Oh, do you think the cartoon guy's going to turn up? Or saying, they're all going to turn up. All the baddies from the episodes.
I wonder if she's going to give Conrad the ability to reshape reality.
Oh, right, yeah.
That would make sense with what we've given in this episode, right? I reject your reality doctor.
Yeah.
I also found that whole standoff a bit cringe. I didn't really enjoy that.
No, same.
The doctor being like, yeah, you're just going to be a footnote. I'm like, I get he's trying to belittle him. But then there's been previous episodes where he's like, I don't agree that anyone's unimportant. Even people he doesn't like, it's like, I don't know, it's just kind of a weird, like, you're going to die alone.
Yeah. The only thing I did enjoy about that is that I do think it was a little bit like, RTD trying to come back to the old, like, sort of, when the doctor gets a little bit nasty. Yeah. But I agree with you that it didn't come across necessarily how I think it was intended.
It was stronger. If you're doing Dark Doctor, I think the seasons where you've done it stronger with Belinda being like, you scanned me without my consent, and I think you're dangerous, I'm not going with you. Yeah. And him being kind of like, this is usually the part where you say, Doctor, you're so amazing.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But it was fine. I think next week looks better. And it's been okay so far.
Yeah.
A huge thank you to Dr. Chike and Peter Vaughan for being my full fat patrons. Your contribution to keeping the channel running is immeasurable. If you'd like to join the Patreon for exclusive goodies, early releases of main videos, the podcast, video scripts, and a thank you in the credits, then please head on over to patreon.com/fullfatvideos to choose one of the paid tiers.